Hey guys, today I wanted to share with you a game on the Nintendo DS where if you're an RPG fan, you really don't want to overlook this one, and that is the Dark Spire on the Nintendo DS. Just keep in mind guys, this is an impressions video and not a review of the full game, as I'm only about 4.5 hours into the game, so it's just my reactions from the first few hours that I've had to spend with it. The Dark Spire is a first-person dungeon-crawling RPG, which is exclusive to the DS and was developed by Success and published by Atlas. Now, anybody that ever played Etrian Odyssey 1 or 2 on the DS, you'll be very familiar with how Dark Spire is going to work. It's basically a first-person dungeon crawl RPG, which is very, very hardcore. It is not, it doesn't forgive the player from making mistakes. Almost maybe 85 to 90% of the time in the game, you're going to be grinding levels in a dungeon and trying to progress further and further each time that you go in, where, every time that you come out of the dungeon, you want to get equipped, sell your items, get better equipment, and try and make it further and further in. Now, I will admit that I never played games on the PC like Wizardry or any of the dungeon crawl RPGs back on the computer in the 80s, and Etrian Odyssey really introduced me to that, and I really liked the challenge, and level grinding really never felt like a chore because it always felt like you were progressing and getting stronger and seeing your characters progress into the job class that they were, that you set them to be. And Dark Spire is basically the same premise, except it has a much darker tone, and as you saw in the beginning of this video, it has a really awesome art style. The first thing you do when you start up the game is you gotta pick your party, where you get to choose between 4 members, and you have to choose between a warrior, thief, mage, and a priest. Then you pick your class, and then you roll for your random stats, which has different variables depending upon what race and class that you chose. After that, you're thrust into a training dungeon where it teaches you sort of the basics of the game, and then you're thrown in the town, where from there you go into the dungeon and you just beat the heck out of enemies and level up, and that's basically how the game works. Now, those of you looking for a deep story, you're really not going to find that here. Most of the story is actually intertwined into the dungeon itself through text, which is actually really well translated and localized. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to show you guys some different gameplay footage from around the game so you get an idea of how it works. So, here we go. Alright, so right now I'm in town, and when you're not crawling in the dungeon, this is where you're going to be spending most of your time. And from here you can go to the guild to check the status of your party members, let them learn new spells and skills. You can check their status, as you see here. On the top screen it displays most of the information that you need to know about them. And you can also change their equipment. But the thing about the equipment in this game is that it doesn't have number statistics. Basically, there's a description of the weapon. Like, for example, let me go to the battle axe that I have on my warrior. If I press the X button, all it tells me is that this is a large, heavy axe and can be used to attack through enemies if the wielder is strong enough to use it properly. And that's it. There's no number-based statistics. So there's another reason why this game is, not the easiest one out there. It doesn't tell you, this weapon has 10 attack, which is, 2 more than your previous weapon. You gotta make the judgment for yourself. Same thing goes for all the armor and accessories. Another element about Dark Spire is that the experience that you get from defeating enemies doesn't go into an experience bar that says, okay, you need 500 experience more to level up. You actually take that experience that you get, and you have to decide whether or not you want to use it to increase your character's class level to give them more HP and make them overall more powerful. You have to decide if you want to use that experience to increase a stat of theirs, if you want to increase their strength or their intelligence or their vitality or their dexterity, or if you want to use that experience to learn a new skill. So it's all shared in like a pool of experience, and you have to distribute it across different elements of your character. So it's not like a traditional RPG in that sense. And as you've already noticed, going around town is actually all menu and text-based. So here's the inn where you can rest and cure yourself, and then you go to the shop where you can buy and sell new items. And when looking at new weapons and stuff, like I said before, it doesn't give you basically any visual representation on how much more powerful that item is going to be over your last item. You just press X and it gives you a description of those said items. Alright, so if I leave town, I'll have the option of going into the Tower or the Hall of Order or Hall of Chaos, and those are basically dependent upon what alliance you take. If you've made your characters lawful, neutral, or chaotic, will offer more benefits for you, like reviving characters and curing them with status alignments. But from here, let's go into the tower, do some dungeon crawling. Alright, so this is the dungeon. The top screen just shows you a visual representation of where you're going. And if you press the Y button, it opens up a map. And as you can see, the map is very, very diverse. And this is just the first floor. The blue lines representing doors, and the purple is the hallways. It is very complicated. It's almost like a labyrinth. Now, one thing you'll notice about this over Etrian Odyssey is that there's actually no map marker for your character. And up here is the key to tell you what everything means on the map. But there is no map marker to show you where you are on the map, so you have to keep track of it. Now, there is a spell that your mage can learn, which will actually show you first, on a static screen where you are, and it'll show you like, okay, you're here. But once you exit out, you don't know where you are again. So it is hardcore in the sense that it's not holding your hand through these dungeons. You really have to keep track of where you're going. It does auto-map it though, which is good. Alright, so this is just the beginning of the first floor. I'll get into a battle just to explain it real fast to you guys. And moving around in the dungeon is all like grid-based. It's one step at a time. Alright, so here's an enemy. You can either look to get a brief description of them, you can run, or you can fight. I'm gonna fight. And basically, it's all simple, attack, defend, spell, item, stats, and run. I'm gonna attack my warrior, and by pressing right on the D-pad, with classes like the warrior, there's different kinds of attacks. There's a swift attack, which will, your attack will go faster, but there's less accuracy, a power attack, which is stronger, but it's slower, and a rage attack, which will attack more enemies, but it's a weaker attack. So there's a little bit of different attacks that you can choose rather than just, your typical attack. So attack, and I'll have my second warrior attack, and my thief in the back attack with his longbow, and my mage, I'll have him cast a fire spell. And from here you start the battle, and it all plays out. Everything is all text-based. There's no animations in terms of the characters, and there's actually no physical picture representations of your characters whatsoever in this game. So that was a fast victory because my characters are all overpowered for this part of the dungeon. Here you get your experience, you get some gold. Alright, now I'm going to go up to the second floor just to show you how the environments change. And if you can't tell, the graphics in this game are very, very awesome and stylized. It's almost like a comic book. Alright, so let me show you a little tip here. In most RPGs where you gotta just keep hammering on the A button on weaker battles, well in this game you can simply hold down the A button and it does everything for you. Watch how fast this goes. Look at that. It does all the menu work for you. You're just holding down a button. So that definitely speeds up the battles, and it's very welcome for when you're level grinding. The only thing you gotta be careful of is watch your character's HP. Now, after you defeat a lot of battles, a chest will appear in which you want to inspect it. I'll inspect it with my thief. It says that it is armed with a trap, so I'm going to disarm it. And once it's disarmed, you open it, and you get, I got a hand axe, and I got 55 gold. So it's very useful to have a thief, mainly because of disarming traps and lockpicking doors. Besides the quests that the game does offer you, it spices up the dungeons a bit by, for instance, one time I had a talking door that made me solve a riddle before I can pass through. There's different kinds of puzzles throughout the dungeon, and one thing I want to show you here is how characters are actually represented. I'm about to enter a thieves' den. Now, as you see here, there's no characters around, right? Well, if I actually step forward here, there's a character here. Just like that, you have to basically step on the exact spot on the grid in order to have character interactions and different quest interactions throughout the game. So, I know a lot of people might be turned off by that, but it basically means, hey, you gotta step on every part of the dungeon. Another thing about the dungeons is that there's actually secret passages, and as you see here, I'm trapped, right? There's only one way out. Here's a regular door, but unless I press the X button here, it tells me it's actually a secret door. Now, I wouldn't have known that unless I pressed the X button, but going through, what do you know, a secret passage. And this place here is actually pitch dark. You have to get around by just listening to the DS when you bump into walls, which is actually really cool. And for those of you that might be kind of intimidated by its challenge, or maybe on the fence on picking it up because you think you might, find it too hard, I say go for it. I was the same way with Etrian Odyssey. I didn't pick that game up for a while because I just thought I wouldn't like it because I heard, oh, it's so hard. And my first hour or two with Etrian Odyssey, I didn't like it, but it really grew on me, and I really turned out to like the series. And Dark Spire, I say give it a shot, guys. It's really unique. It's a lot of fun. The challenge is hard, but it is rewarding and fun. So check out the Dark Spire, guys. Definitely a unique RPG on the Nintendo DS.